Well, it's never dull at Kingstonian, is it? We are maybe doing an interview that maybe we didn't think we'd be doing a couple of weeks ago, but we're here with the new Kingstonian manager, OLeary, and with George from the board, just to hear, what's been going on and what we should be excited about for this coming season. I guess the first thing to say is, Lee, it's not welcome to Kingstonian because you were already here, but welcome to the hot seat. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well. Thanks, Jamie. Spent a little bit of time off today with the family and kids, so I feel a little bit more recharged than I felt over the last week or so now. What's it been since Tuesday? So 3-4 days. It's been a bit hectic, but thoroughly enjoying it at the moment. And just can't wait to get started. Can't wait for obviously the first pre-season training session to get underway. But yeah, I'm delighted and honoured to be appointed the manager, although it come out of the blue and a surprise to a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, when you were offered it, I presume it was a fairly easy decision to take it.
Although I had to obviously speak to the family, speak to the wife, and speak to a few friends and that. Obviously, the one thing that was really important was obviously the travelling. But I've been in at Kingstonian now for the last 2 to 2.5 months, so it's something that I'm used to, and obviously I work in town, so all of that stuff. Like I say, it was an easy decision to make, with the club being so close to my heart, and in this kind of period that we're in, I felt like it was the right decision for me to obviously help the club moving forward, and especially moving into a new stadium, whenever that may be.
Yeah, you mentioned the club close to your heart thing. I was amazed when I saw that you'd only played for K 65 times. It felt like you were around as a player for much longer than that.
Yeah, well, it was obviously over 2 periods. I thoroughly enjoyed my time at Kingstonian as a player under Tommy and Graham. They're still really close mates of mine now, to be honest. So when I've said this to so many people, although it was only 65 games, I'd probably say it was the most enjoyable time of my football, being in and around a brilliant group of players and a really good management team. But also, like, Kings Meadow, it was that kind of like icing on the cake, where it was a lovely place to play football, and at that time the feel of the football club and the fans and being in the bar after games and that, and kind of having that interaction with people was, for me at the time of my career that I was in, was really important. And it was, like I said, it was a really enjoyable moment. So I always keep it close to my heart. And obviously I went through a little bit of a tough period when I was at Kingstonian with things that happened in my personal life with my sister, and the club were nothing but supportive at the time, and I'll always be grateful for them type of moments, So yeah, I have a lot of love for the football club, and that's why the decision was such an easy one for me.
You mentioned Tommy and Graham. Presumably Harps is absolutely delighted there's another black cab driver in charge of Case.
Yeah, he probably is. I spoke to him on a few occasions as well, and he was one that I asked about the situation and that, and yeah, he didn't say anything that I didn't think he would say anyway. He was really supportive of it and that, and he's someone that I speak to all the time and get some advice off of him, and like I say, he's a really close mate of mine still.
We'll obviously look back a little bit more in a bit with you, George, but have you spoken to Hayden in the last week since he left and since you took the job, Lee?
Sorry, say that again, Jamie. It cut out. Sorry.
Have you spoken to Hayden since you took the job?
Yeah, so I spoke to Hayden the morning after speaking to the club, and was just honest with him. I said to the club that it was important that before anything was announced or there are any kind of talks that got out to the public, that I was upfront and honest with Hayden. It was only right that I spoke to him before he found out from anyone else. So yeah, I spoke to him the morning, the following morning, and then I spoke to him again just before the announcement, just to let him know of the situation, just out of respect, really, because it's the right thing to do,
Yeah. what's a OLeary team like? You know, I think one of my main recollections of playing against, well, the two games I can remember most vividly against Potter's Bar were both really wet. There was a really wet one towards the end of League, maybe Dylan's penultimate game. I think you beat us at King George's Field, and then there was the one at Potter's Bar last season, which was rightfully, obviously called off because the linesman had wet feet.
Yeah. Let's not speak too much about that.
Yeah, I remember speaking to you after, and you weren't too happy.
Yeah.
What's a OLeary team like? What are the hallmarks of it?
Well, obviously, previously with my previous job, a little bit of a different job role. To be honest, it was obviously working on limited resources. It was important that it was important to bring players into the football club that give them a little bit of a platform and a little bit of a stepping stone for them to go on and just get them some games and go on and play high, you know. And that was kind of the remit, working with younger players with good potential and exciting players. But with that, obviously, it brings its own difficulties, you know. But I'd say styles, obviously, I'm a bit of a purist, and I don't think Hayden would have brought me into the football club if I wasn't that, because I know the style that Hayden likes to play as well, you know. So that stuff's really important to me. We will play really good football, but there needs to be a structure in place. The environment and the atmosphere in and around the dressing room is key. If that's not in place first and foremost, then it'd be difficult for us to play any kind of attractive football. So winning football anyway. So yeah, it's important that the environment's good, and then we'll have a plan and we'll have a structure to everything that we do in and out of possession. So will we be playing attractive football? Yes, but there'll be structure to it also, and that's a big thing for me, is obviously as well with the football club, that they have some really good youngsters in and amongst the camp already. So I've worked with youngsters. I like working with youngsters. At my previous club, I brought an under-23s side into the club, which worked hand in hand with the first team, which was important. But that's going to be important for us moving forward as well, with some changes that have happened. So yeah, that one thing for sure is what the style of football that Hayden has been renowned for. We will definitely be carrying that baton forward.
How much continuity do you envisage there being with the playing staff? I don't know how much you can say at this stage, and you know, it's obviously quite late in the gap between seasons for managers to change. So where's the kind of squad building up to at this stage?
Yeah, well, it's obviously it's been a bit of a whirlwind since coming in, and obviously yeah, from the moment that it was announced, a bit of a blank canvas. I hadn't spoke to any of the players, so that's been my initial kind of dealings over the last 3-4 days, is just getting around and speaking to all the existing players, and one by one trying to get them committed to the football club. It's difficult to be able to keep loads and loads of the boys, just for so many different reasons. But there is some update with some players, and a part of the management team. We've got Rob Tolfree, Ollie Cook, Kenny Beanie, Kashani Samuels, Nyron Clunis that we've got committed for the season ahead, and also we've brought back Javan Spencer. So they're the 6 lads that are committed and confirmed, along with some lads that I'm bringing into the football club and that are coming in on kind of like not a trial basis, just to kind of have a look at them in pre-season and give them an opportunity, along with offering probably another 6 or 7 deals that we're waiting on. But we're in a little bit of a pivotal moment at the minute, just because of we're so close to being to pre-season. It is far from an ideal situation, but it's one that I'm positive about, and it's something that I'm kind of getting my teeth stuck into. Also on the management side of things, I'm looking to bring in another coach with me, but delighted to bring in an assistant in Spencer Knight, who's got similar kind of history to my management background. He's worked with young players, and he's also worked with a similarly smaller budget. So with our kind of knowledge and expertise put together in working with those kind of players, we've kind of got a good mix and a good blend at the moment. So delighted to bring Spencer in. He brings a wealth of experience also. So he's someone that I've known for a while, and someone that I will trust, and someone that I already get on with really well. So yeah, looking forward to working with Spencer. But yeah, delighted to get the lads committed that I've named. They're bought into kind of like the vision and into the project, which I'm delighted about also.
Right. And in terms of, I'm fairly certain the club said that, you know, that relationship with Nigel James would continue. Are some of the young players that we saw kind of bring through, should we expect to see more of that this season?
No, definitely. We got a meeting with Nigel coming up. Obviously, briefly spoke to Nigel, and obviously speaking to George, who's in contact with Nigel, and the board members that speak to Nigel. Yeah, it's going to be vital really for us as a football club going forward, because he's got some real young talent in there. So it's important for us to get the balance right, making sure we dip them in and out at the right time to help their progression and give them a little bit of a pathway. But also getting a balance right and being really competitive on the pitch as well. Just an update with Declan Scorer. He's going into, I'm not so sure if I should be saying this, but I think he's going on trial on the 3rd of July for a week. I've had a conversation with him today. So if all goes to plan, then brilliant for Declan, but if not, he'll be back into the football club as well. So yeah, some positive things going on. Are
you able to say what kind of level Declan's trial is going to be at?
Not non-league.
Oh, great.
Yeah, no, it's a great opportunity for the lad. Yeah, he's got loads and loads of potential. Unfortunately for me, I just didn't see him out on the pitch enough in my short time last year, which really unfortunate. But I've seen so much of him in training and a little bit of the games that I've seen that he's got so much potential.
Yeah. What are the kind of aims for this season? You know, I guess as a player during your time at K's, it felt, apart from the last few months, it was always on the fringes of the playoffs, and that's, you know, certainly where we were for a lot of last season as well. Is that where the aims are for this season?
I think it has to be. I think definitely maybe the feeling outside of the football club may not be that, because obviously Hayden resigned, but definitely internally with me and Spencer and the group of lads that are already committed to the football club, there's definitely ambition there. I wouldn't like to put it out there where we're aiming for, but we're definitely not just looking to finish mid-table, that's for sure. It's not, the size of the football club is too big for that to even be even a thought. So from us internally, what the fans and what the club will definitely get from us is a competitive team, a competitive player group, but a team that will always be trying to win every game of football that we go into. And where that leaves us and where we finish at the end of the season will be where we deserve to be. But we have ambition and we have expectations. So that's probably as much as I'd say on that.
But I mean, I guess, you know, I don't know if you're best prepared. You're in the best position to answer this, but I guess for a lot of fans, it almost feels more important to be competitive this season with the move to Tooting being, you know, that bit further away from Kingston. You mentioned playing at Kingsmeadow is something that, you know, really topped off your experience at the club. It'll be different this season at Tooting, won't it?
It will be, and just to touch on what you were just saying, it's a really important period for the football club. You know, like the long-term future, whether that's 10, 15, 20, 30 years, however long we're looking at here, the long-term future for the football club is is the most important thing. And in this period of me coming in and hopefully moving the football club into a new stadium is obviously something that I'm excited about, to bring a little bit of stability to the football club. But like I said, always being competitive and always pushing the boundaries and getting every last penny out of what budget we have, and maximising that to the absolute maximum. So that stuff's important. And I've worked on a budget. I don't want to keep going over the budget. Like, it's not entirely my focus. My focus is on getting good value for money, and that's how I've always worked. But yeah, moving the football club into a new stadium is really important for me. And going over to Tooting, it's something that I'm excited about. It's a lovely facility over there. Played there many a times years ago, and the pitch was always really nice. I'm sure that's going to be the case this year. I know Hayden put in a lot of work with making sure that was possible. But the facilities over there are really good as well. So it'd be a good place for the boys to obviously showcase their abilities as well. And I think, although it's a little bit out of the borough, I think it's a nice place for fans to go and watch football. So it's something that I'm really looking forward to.
How much say were you able to have on the kind of pre-season schedule that the club's just released? Like, how much of that was already in place? How much was it? Were you able to say, actually, this is what we wanted to get out of this period before the season kicks off?
Yeah, no, that all of that stuff was put in place. Normally, how I used to work is that I used to have pre-season friendlies scheduled in before the previous season had already ended. So that's how you have to kind of manage those situations to not miss out on really good fixtures and friendlies. So I've not had too much of a say on that, but obviously the fixtures are in place. There's some really good fixtures in there. Obviously we've got a couple of home ones at Tooting, which would be good to get familiar with the surroundings that we'll be working in. But also some good away fixtures at the same time, which again I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into.
Yeah, great. George, just moving on to you briefly, just to let people know, we're not going to talk about the kind of ground situation in this interview. I'm going to be speaking to Mark Anderson in the next couple of weeks. There'll be another interview. We'll kind of updates on that at that point. But George, how's the last couple of weeks been in the life of a Kingstonian director?
Cool. Well, they say a week's a long time in politics. 3 or 4 days, as Lee says, over the lot since Monday night, Tuesday. It's just been non-stop. But it's the business end of the season. We're focused on helping Lee prepare and supporting Lee as best as we can. And to be honest, Jamie, with the turn of events that we've had, since last weekend when news broke on Sunday, it's to be expected. But it's definitely been a very hectic few days.
I don't know how much you can or want to say about the circumstances regarding Hayden's departure, but what was that like, and was it out of the blue, and what was the kind of board's reaction to that?
Like Hayden said in his statement, and like we've said, we had a number of meetings with Hayden since the Dorking Wanderers Surrey Senior Cup final, and in the end, it's football, Jamie. As a board of directors, we've got to do the best for the club. Hayden's got to look after himself and do the right thing for him. It was all extremely amicable, and over the last 3 years, it's been difficult for Hayden. You've had 2 seasons cut by COVID. So really last season was his first full season in 3 years at the football club. And we got a lot to thank Hayden for. He put in a tremendous amount of effort, time, enthusiasm, that not just from a footballing point of view. Yes, we got the great memories of Dartford and Macclesfield and the Woking FA Trophy game at King George's and Football Focus and all of that kind of stuff. But to be fair to Hayden, I think what he'd done off the pitch with the supporters, and when he come in at quite a tricky time and sort of galvanising the supporters and the club, I think that needs a special mention. So it's all incredibly amicable. We've spoken this week. There's no hard feelings there. We thank him. and the football club and his ideas were just too far apart. And sometimes, not just in football, but in life, that happens. So the timing of Hayden's departure wasn't ideal, but what we've had to do over the last few days as a board, firstly, in identifying Lee, who we're delighted to bring to the football club. It was a unanimous decision. He's played for the football club. I mean, you mentioned, the 65 games that Lee played for us. It felt a lot longer, as you say. It was over 2 spells. I know you've mentioned those 2 games at Potters Bar. I remember the one at King George's. I think Potters Bar beat us 3-0. I can't forget last season, that game. I think that the best thing to come out of it for us was the burgers at Potters Bar and the catering there. I think that was the thing that I remember from that day, because it was just a bizarre situation. But I think the one thing I will say about Lee in a Kingstonian shirt, which epitomises him, is the last game at Kings Meadow where he captained the side in Alan Ince's absence, and we had that sort of Terry Butcher moment where he was bandaged, heavily bleeding, but soldiered on, and that sort of epitomises the kind of guy that he is. We know as a club what we're going to get out of him. I mean, the untold hours that we've been on the phone this week's been unbelievable, and bearing in mind, he's in a black cab for most of the day. We tried to conduct this interview, Jamie, at a time where none of us would be in a car, specifically Lee, but obviously you've not managed to keep to that side of it. But, at the time, with everything that occurred with Hayden's departure, it was important that we appointed someone that knew the club, but really importantly, and it's a real benefit to us as a board of directors, knew the existing dressing room. I know Lee was only there for sort of 2.5 months towards the end of the season assisting Hayden, but to us, the fact that he knows the dressing room, knows the boys that are in there, we've managed to keep a real good core of those players, and understands the mechanisms of the club, because it's safe to say, well, I'm going to be biased. We are a huge name in non-league football, but we are slightly different to a lot of non-league football clubs in the way that we are, because we're going through that period where for the last 5 years we've not had our own ground. We don't want to be nomadic, but we're slightly different in the sense that we haven't got our own ground, we don't get our own bar takings, we don't have income coming in like other non-league clubs from the high of the pitch or the function room. Lee understands all that. He played for the club at Kings Meadow, he's come in, and what was really important for us, he's managed at the level at step 3 in the Isthmian Premier League, and very successfully. So we're very fortunate to have him in the building at the time, and he was our unanimous natural choice, and we're delighted that he's accepted the role.
I don't want to ask this in a way that's unfair to Lee, but and not that Lee obviously isn't a great appointment, but was the lack of, was the speed of the process to appoint Lee a result of how late in, the bit before pre-season that's happened?
Not at all. I mean, to be honest, when we put our announcement out there, we weren't inviting applications, but safe to say we got a number of applications, of which some were extremely credible applicants. But we felt that we know Lee knows us, he knows the football club, he's managed at the level, he knows the dressing room. We knew that we had our man in the building.
Yeah. You won't thank me for asking this question, but Lee mentioned the word. Plenty of fans have mentioned the word this week. I need to mention the B word and talk about the budget. I know you won't want to go into detail, and you feel free to say no comment. But the questions the fan are asking this week is about how the budget compares to previous seasons, and I guess alongside that, what the board's hopes are for this season.
Yeah, listen. we'll always be open, whether it's Mark, whether it's myself, whether it's John that you're interviewing, or Paul. We've got a duty to always be open and honest with our supporters. And I know sometimes, given the ground situation, people say we don't say enough. You touched on it earlier. Mark and yourself will do an interview over the next couple of weeks, which will go out, and it won't be pretty, but it will be honest. And we'll always be honest in that respect. People talk about budgets in football. What I'll say, Jamie, is we've had to cut our cloth accordingly for this forthcoming season, just like not just any other football club, but any other household, any other business in the UK currently. With the way the economy and everything else is. The bottom line is the future of the football club off the pitch is more important to us as a board of directors. We have got to move on with securing a piece of land and building a football ground on it, building a home on it. What that doesn't mean is that we're not expecting to be in a relegation battle, nor does it mean that we would settle for mid-table obscurity. All that we're saying is that as a football club moving forward for this season, we'll be competitive, but we'll be building a team which will be a mixture of core experienced players that we've managed to keep, other players that Lee's identified that he wants to bring in, which will be a mix of both experience and youth. We've got some fantastic kids, not just coming through the under-18s, but they've just finished the season with 2 under-18s cup final wins. We've just mentioned Declan Skura, and there's what we've got to look at. We're very, very fortunate with Nigel. We've got some great people, but Nigel and what he's done and how he's renowned for sort of nurturing this young talent in the South London area is just unbelievable. And he's almost got a conveyor belt of youngsters that are just unreal. We'll be tapping into those. We'll also be looking to sign other young players, the best players in the South London and Surrey area. And we'll just change the dynamic slightly. We'll still play decent football. Lee's touched on that. He's going to bring in his own coaching staff. Obviously, Spencer Knight as his assistant's a brilliant appointment, looking at bringing in a first-team coach and adding to that with, a physio possibly, and also a goalkeeping coach. But it's not, I wouldn't describe it as a budget cut. I would say we're cutting our cloth accordingly and we're just looking for value for money. I think it's fair to say that from the outset last season, maybe we didn't finish where people expected us to finish after February. You were there that night as I was when we were 2-0 down at Haringey and won 3-2. That was on the 25th of January, and we ended up being 5th in the table. Where we went from there wasn't where people expected us to be. And I think it's safe to say also, respectfully, from a recruitment point of view, at the business end of the season, it didn't go quite right last season, and we maybe didn't get value for money. So that's where we're at. As a board of directors, Mark, Paul, myself, we look at ourselves as first and foremost custodians of the football club, and what our aim is basically to secure the club's long-term future. That doesn't mean, however, that it's going to be at the expense of having a team which are going to be battling for staying in the league. We're not at that place. What we're just doing is just cutting our cloth accordingly.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Haringey game. Lee, you were there that night as well, weren't you? Actually, I remember seeing you at half time. George, just and again, I don't know how much you can say about this, but I guess one of the things that feels quite striking over the last week is, it really wasn't that long ago that Hayden signed quite a long-term contract. So has that kind of focus shifted since Hayden signed that contract, or is it just, these things just change over time?
These things change over time. People look at it and say Hayden signed a contract in February or whenever it was. He's now resigned, but it was a number of reasons. I mean, as a club, we've signed a confidentiality agreement, and I'm not going to dwell on it. But what I will say is that, in business or in football, if you've got a situation where a number of both parties can't agree on just footballing and non-footballing ideas and circumstances and situations, and it wasn't for the want of trying, as Hayden said in his statement. It was just one of those things that in the end there was no hard feelings, but it wasn't right. We wish Hayden well. Non-league football is a really small world. I know in talk, especially local non-league football, I know in talking to Hayden, he's going to take a well-earned rest and have a break from football. But I'm sure come some point in the season, if a job becomes available, I'm sure it'll be in contention for it, because he's a highly experienced local non-league manager. Despite his love for Chelsea and probably wanting to make use of his season ticket at Stamford Bridge, I'm sure he'll be tempted back into the hot seat somewhere. So, there's no hard feelings. It was nothing to do. When we sat down with Hayden in February, he committed to a contract. We committed to a contract. We were delighted to have him on board. But it was a number of things, as I say, both footballing and non-footballing, and our ideas were just too far apart. And it wasn't for the want of trying.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it'd be nice for him to use that season ticket for a change. There were times during a touchline ban that Chelsea were at home and he was too busy at home following K's from afar to go to games. So maybe he'll use it this season, or just be at every K's game like he seemed to be before he got the job anyway. But we don't want to dwell too much on the past, and nor do I want to ask too much about the kind of budget stuff, but I'm just aware that's the conversation the fans are having. Lee, we'll leave the last word to you as we finish. What is it you're most excited about, both for the coming season, but in taking this job at Kingstonian?
Well, obviously the size of the football club is absolutely massive. So that excites me, just to obviously be the manager of the football club. Working with the group of players that have committed, that I worked with last year, but working with them a little bit more closely. What I have noticed since obviously accepting the job, that although I knew the football club was big, having conversations on the phone with numerous amount of people, you just truly get to grips with the actual size of the club and the size of the job, really. So all of that stuff excites me, and it's something that, like I've said, that I'll be getting my teeth stuck right into. I'm just looking forward to the first game of the season now. Can't wait for it to get going. All of this stuff before pre-season, I don't really enjoy the off-season stuff. Getting into pre-season, getting into the friendlies underway, getting into the lads and getting a lot of work into them in the pre-season schedule and training is something that I'm looking forward to. I like working on the training ground with the boys. Like I say, just getting back to competitive football and getting the season underway is something that I'm really focused on at the minute, and just doing everything that I can to build and kind of get a group of players together that are going to be competitive. So yeah, really excited for the challenge at hand, because I know that it is a challenge, but one that I can't wait to get going.
When does pre-season training start?
We start on the 2nd of July, with the first pre-season game being on the 12th of July, and that's against Met Police away. Yeah.
Great. Well, Lee, congratulations again. All the best. We're all behind you. If you do well, K's do well, so we're all pulling for you. Appreciate your time tonight. George, appreciate yours. We'll see you all soon.
More than welcome, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks for what you've done, mate. Really appreciate it.